Hello, my friend, and welcome to the 563rd episode of the Sales Podcast. I'm Wes Schaefer, the Sales Whisperer, your host. Today we have Joshua Lisec. He is the #1 ghostwriter in the world. And I asked him about that right off the bat, because that's a big claim. If you don't know what ghostwriting is, then listen to this episode. But it's, a lot of people use someone to get their voice, to get their story out of their head onto paper. And many famous people do this. Many New York Times bestsellers do this. One of my clients right now has actually worked with Joshua. It is a good way to get what he calls first author advantage, right? You can get the word out and kind of stick a flag in the ground and claim it. And there's not many things that help you claim leadership status like being an author on a topic. Back in 2012, I wrote the book on Infusionsoft. It had never been done. And so I'd been a partner less than 8 years, or less than 4 years. I started in 2008. So less than 4 years when I decided to do it. I pre-sold a few copies at one of the conferences. And in digging in and making that book happen, I did become an expert at it. There were still some techie guys that just lived in it and will always be better. But when somebody that would do a Google search, they would find me because the techie guys are techie. They're doing it for others. So I was able to put myself out there and be seen as the expert, help people get started. And I could pull in those techie guys if the coding and advanced things were needed. But then I became the broker of information. So that was a good thing. And I did it, and I got those opportunities because I had a book. It helped, right? I was making a lot of sales before the book. But as time went on and competition increased, you must continuously be looking for ways to improve, ways to stay ahead of the competition. Like they say every day in the Serengeti, you're either a lion or the gazelle. The lion is running to eat. The gazelle is running to not be eaten. So whether you're the hunter or the hunted, you better be up and running. So getting a book done is something that can help you run ahead of the pack. So we dive into that. Okay, so you are in for a treat with that. I linked to a few resources on the blog here about copywriting 101. I've been doing a lot of posts, social media posts daily, trying some new things out, working with an outbound team to help me fire some things up. But I'm giving the same advice to my clients, same advice that I'm taking, the same advice that you're hearing here. Right? I wrote my second book and I retitled it. Now it's The Sales Whisperer Way. Been working on an audio version of that. I actually just spoke this morning with a publisher on publishing my daily readings or, my daily post on the daily reading from the Bible. I've done that now almost 5 years exactly. It'll be 5 years on June 26th. So, I've been doing that, and that's thousands of pages. So we're trying to figure out how to chop it up into smaller, bite-sized morsels. So get the word out, right? Get it on paper, and it'll help you differentiate yourself. If you need help, if you're not going to write, you want to just make some calls. You want to get better on the phone. I was in Texas last week working with a client. The ads were great, plenty of leads coming in. Sales weren't there because the guys weren't great on the phone. I actually just jumped in, started making some calls. They recorded me, and the owner realized, he literally said, "Hey, our ads are fine. I was about to change them, but our ads are fine. We've got to get better on the phone." Saw some guru on Twitter this week writing about, if you're a startup, the first thing you should do is market. I had Brandon Bornanson on. He's a return guest. Interviewed him this week. He'll go live here in about 3 more episodes. But he helps you with finding data so you can make outbound calls. So I asked him about that, and he agreed with me. Selling is vital. Selling is under everything. Your marketing is just selling in print. If you have marketers that don't know how to sell, I guarantee you're wasting money. I guarantee your ads are not as efficient as they could be. I guarantee your leads are not as good as they could be. I guarantee your salespeople are getting frustrated because they're wasting time with unqualified prospects. Everything is sales. So if you need help with that, hit me up. Let's talk. I'll help you grow your sales. I promise. Now, let's bring on Joshua. Joshua Lisec. I got a question for you right off the bat, man. Are you Ohio's number one ghostwriter or the world's? Because I've seen two different plugs we're going to get into, but all the way from Ohio, man. Welcome to the Sales Podcast. How the heck are you?
Hey, Wes, it's a real pleasure. Thanks for having me on today. You know, that kind of billing, self-styled billing, you might say.
Hey, I know.
Ghostwriter.
You're a writer. I see LinkedIn says, where did I go? I clicked somewhere. I don't know. I was looking you up. All right. Twitter, you're the world's number one ghostwriter. But on LinkedIn, I think it said Ohio's.
Yes. Yeah, so there's an exclusive certification program for professional ghostwriters. This is kind of like the otherwise boring subtext for the conversation for those listening. There is a master's degree level certification program out of University of California, San Diego. University of California, Long Beach, rather.
Yep.
And it is probably the most difficult scholastic academic activity I've ever done. Because they throw you into the program and they say, okay, write books for us, and we'll let you know whether or not you get certified. That's effectively how the program went when I took it.
Damn.
The dropout rate was very, very high, as you can imagine, from something like that. And at the time, there were fewer than 50 who had ever completed the program when I completed it, and I was the first to complete it in Ohio.
Nice.
And then something interesting began happening. Clients, people who'd interview me, people who knew my work really well, began calling me the number one ghostwriter in the world. It was after my courses came out, I started taking my stuff and playing it. So if you're going to call me that, I'll call myself that too.
Hey, amen. Run with it. So 70 books ghostwritten for billionaires, CEOs, celebrities. That's pretty cool, man. What do billionaires and CEOs know that the average entrepreneur out there hustling and grinding doesn't know?
I did a thread about this, actually, lessons from billionaires that I've ghostwritten for. And so it was all of them have a similar process that they go through. So the first thing is they have a startup that they bootstrap or get like minimal funding from, maybe $100,000 from mom and dad, or $10,000 from grandma, right? And they throw themselves in that business 2 to 7 years, 100 hours a week of work on that business. But here's the thing. They're not just working in the business. They are obeying the E-Myth by Michael Gerber. If anyone's familiar with that book, kind of a classic business operations bestseller for 40 something years now. And that book, of course, advises business owners to think like entrepreneurs, not like employees, which 90% plus of business owners do. They see themselves as an employee at the company, right? They own a job, basically. But the people that I know who have the billionaire trajectory, they see themselves as the entrepreneur from the very beginning. They are not doing the tedious day-to-day operations stuff themselves. They are grandmasters. They are visionaries. They are, here's where we're going. Can you help me get us there? Sort of activity. The explicit goal is build a business that is so desirable that they can sell it. Now, what the business does is one of three things, usually a combination of the three. This first startup that ultimately springboards people to becoming billionaires, at least those that I've ghostwritten for. And the business does three things. It does something better, faster, cheaper than an existing solution. So it offers functional value. There's only three forms of value that people purchase, and it's one combination of the three: functional value, emotional value, and financial value, which can also be about time. So it does something better than an existing solution. It makes people feel better, and feel better can even be it's easier to use it, less frustration, less anxiety, or wow, this is good enough for what I've got, or I feel really good about buying this best-in-class solution. There's nothing come along that's as good as this is. I feel good about myself for buying this. And then it is more cost-effective, or just works faster, or provides quicker ROI, quicker turnaround. And so this is what they would do. They would throw themselves 2 to 7 years, 180 to 100 hours a week, getting as many customers as they could as quickly as possible, focusing on customer acquisition, not on logo design and should we do social media. They are focused on how to get as many customers for whatever price as fast as possible. And ideally, we're earning more than we're spending. Ideally. But the business is already pre-validated because they're selling something that is superior, is superior to an existing solution in some way. And this is across industries. That's step one. 2 to 7 years into it, they sell, usually for high 7 figures or even low to mid 8 figures. So we're 2 million on up to 50, 60 million, 70 million for this first business that they have built. 2 to 7 years, 80 to 100 hours a week. Most people do not want to work 2 to 7 years, 80, 100 hours a week. They just don't. That's why most people don't become billionaires. That's not the only reason, but that's the first step. And then from there, what they do is they transition to becoming a sort of a meta entrepreneur at the next stage. And the meta entrepreneur is when they then go from running one business to buying and running multiple businesses in the same space. And then they will have one another acquire one another. So they know what works in a business. So they know how to the functional value, the emotional value, and the financial value, offer a superior solution to other businesses that are out there. So they buy businesses that have a CEO or owner who thinks like an employee. They buy that business because that person cannot scale it because they're filling out paperwork. They're handling conversation with new hires. They are in the design team meeting working on the logo. This is what they do. And this is why they struggle as a company. So the person with a lot of capital from their first sale of business, they'll go buy that company. And then they'll buy that company's competitor. And then they'll buy the competitor's non-competing, but service that jives well with it, you see. And it's just that process, just build and build and build. And you go from a few million to a lot of millions, hundreds of millions, billions. That's how it goes. It's bigger and bigger deals doing the same thing at bigger and bigger scale.
So these billionaires and CEOs, if you look at personality types, are these the hard chargers, the D's or maybe the I's? Or are they more of the compliant, like the engineer, accountant, or does it run the gamut?
It's people who have a vision that they cannot get out of their heads, and they can't. They're usually very fast talkers because they see this amazing reality that they can create, and it's how do we make this happen as fast as possible? So what they are not doing in their day-to-day life, they try to get out of. They are not doing things that keep them stuck. They are not working on the logo design. They are not answering customer service emails. They are not pretending to be tech support. They are not in the office filling out paperwork. Okay. They are not handwriting every line of that proposal. That's not what they're doing. They have someone else do that. Now, sometimes in the first few months, first year or so, they are doing those sorts of things, but they're focused on whatever it takes to get customers as fast as possible. They are idea salespeople, really, because that's what salespeople do. It has the number one most important function of a business is selling the product or service. And so they're just idea salespeople. But they also know how they can recognize an idea that is well executed versus one that isn't. And they know why people are going to buy. And this, I think, where we make the grand turn into sales. Mm-hmm. They know why people are going to buy what they're going to buy. So they can hire subject matter experts in accounting or taxes or building standard operating procedures or writing, which is why they end up coming to me, is because they want someone who can explain their grand vision in a way that everyone from the board to the intern can understand.
But if they're at that level already, because that was going to be my next question, why do they bother writing a book?
Yes. So a book is useful at every stage, depending on what the objective is that they want out of it. Writing a book, a lot of people hope that they sell a lot of copies of the book. And that's a cool goal. And I've had clients who sold tens of thousands of copies in a very short period of time of their book. That's not why they wrote it. They wrote it so that they could have the words author of behind their name, because nothing grants authority, credibility, and perception of unique value like writing a book. Doing webinars doesn't do that. Doing PR campaigns doesn't do that. Being quoted in Forbes doesn't do that.
Well, okay. Well, but hold that thought, because I want to come back for like beginners, right? People newer in their businesses. But a billionaire, I don't know if Mark Cuban's written a book. He probably has, but he's credible to me without a book. So why do these people that have quote unquote made it? Is it just filling in another gap? Is it like a deep down thing? Like I'm gonna prove to the world. I'm gonna prove to my sixth grade English teacher that I did amount to something, and it's a personal thing, or
it's usually because there's always someone whose book that they read that they were inspired by, who has more opportunities, more leverage, more time, more market share, more money even. One of these billionaires in particular, he held up a book in his hand on a very first sales call, and he says, "I need to write this book in my industry. This is the one," because they want more opportunities, they want more of the good deals, and they want them to come to them because they have so much time now. They get all these opportunities, but they want a book out there as the clarion call for the type of businesses that they want to purchase, the type of deals they want to work with, the type of new industries they want to get in, even the type of activism, philanthropy, you might say, that they want to get into, social entrepreneurship sorts of things. And there's also the legacy component. They do it for their own emotional value, their own emotional gratifying experience, because it's not ultimately about the money. It's all the friends you made along the way. And they want to do that for the next person, because they're regularly being asked by college students, by young professionals, how do I get where you are? Right? And they feel that they've been so rewarded by the market to the tune of 10 figures that it just makes sense that they put something out there for $19.95 that anyone can pick up and glean lessons from.
Yeah. So how can non-billionaires do this? How can they leverage a book? How do I know I even have a book in me?
Yes. So we know from consistent surveys over the years that about 85 to 90% of people want to write a book. So we all have a book in us, is what the expression is. Of course, that doesn't mean you should write it. That doesn't mean it's actually going to do anything for you. For some people early on in my career, I would give them a cathartic project, meaning I would write their autobiography, their life story that only 100 people wanted to read. And that was enough for them. But that's not the sort of book that results in multiple millions in revenue. I've done those books before. And the objective in those cases is to gain what's called first author advantage. It's a term I've coined based on the first mover advantage, where the first in a new space, the first in an industry, the first unique solution of its kind, even if later ones surpass it, even if it's more expensive and less effective as other solutions, it still becomes the first one that everything else is compared to since then. And
well,
that's
you know what? And I got that back in 2012. I wrote the first book on Infusionsoft.
Yeah.
Now Keep. And I was a mediocre user. I'd use it for 4 years, but I was a sales guy, right? I wasn't a geek. I use, like you're talking about, like focus on sales, right? I used Infusionsoft out of the box, no modifications, and did the minimum amount of integrations and fancy stuff just to make the sale. But nobody had written a book, because there's plenty of people that are smarter on the software than me. But people say, well, how good are you? I'm like, well, I wrote the book. And they're like, that was enough.
Yes. And there's no greater mic drop moment in business to be able to say, I wrote the book, because within that statement is packed an enormously dense amount of value. Authority, this is the person, this is the business, this is the solution, this is the expert. Credibility, I can trust what they say. They know what they're talking about. They're not going to sell me a bill of goods. It's also expertise, meaning people can trust you to uniquely figure out their problems. And so a book has multiple uses. And the simplest one is a couple of clients will do this. They do not market themselves out online very much. All they do is they mail an autographed copy of their book to prospects that they want as clients. And they say, hey, I read about your book in such and such, or read about your business in such and such place. I think I can help you with what you're going through right now. This book is going to help you get there. If you want to have a conversation about it and implement these ideas inside your business and have me do that for you, here's how to call me. And that's how he gets his 10K a month retainer consulting clients.
Yeah, but nobody has attention spans. They don't read more than 288 characters, man. Do I really need a book?
Good question. Good question. People have an attention span for good content. I tweeted out today, ironically, that books that are runaway bestsellers are books that get finished. Most books do not get finished. Most books. I think only like something like 7% of books, I believe is the figure, 7%, is the number of books that get read cover to cover, because most just aren't that good. What I've consistently been hearing from my own clients is that in reviews and customer reviews, readers will mention, and I really love what you said about XYZ thing in chapter 21 of 21. Like my favorite part of the book was, and then they mentioned something that was at the very end of the book or on the latter pages of the book. And it's not like they skipped to that part. It was actually that they read the whole thing. And then we'll also often offer a call to action of now the next thing that to do is that you've read this book is go to the website, learn about this next product, engage with us. We can help you. We can do all this for you to save you all this time. And those links get the clicks. Those pages get visited. Those newsletter offers for readers get subscribed to. So people who read my clients' books are actually reading a lot of them. And the reason why we're able to do that is simply by creating flow. We know that 80% of a copywriter's time on a sales letter must be focused on the headline, because that's the hook, right? And so everything about the structure of a book must be designed to get the person to read the next thing. And so it's a consistent cliff-hanging process, meaning you open a loop, open the next loop, and then close the last one. Open the next loop. It's, you just read in this chapter about this and this and this, but you're probably wondering about this and that. And I have a story for you in the next chapter, which is going to, well, where's the next chapter? So you're consistently pulling people into the next thing. You're telling people, here's what you're going to learn next. Here's how it's going to be valuable to you. And here's how it integrates into what you just read. Let's go. You're consistently setting people up to read the next chapter. Mm-hmm. It's the same with scrolling the timeline, right? Maybe a single tweet can be up to 280 characters, but people will doom scroll the timeline and read thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of words in that period where they're sitting on the couch on a weekend and the TV's on and they're not paying attention to it, and their spouse is over there not paying attention to them either, and they've read thousands of words. They've read multiple chapters of a book, the equivalent of. So what they need is to be engaged. What they need is something that's exciting. What they need is to know that what the book is promising is of such high value that it's worth 4 hours of their time. And those are the books that do well, not just in terms of copies sold, but by convincing the reader to engage with the business, to reach out to the owner of the business, to talk to their salespeople, is because it was not just worth $20. It's worth 4 hours of their time to invest in reading it.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned Twitter, and we know some similar people at Lattimore. I follow some guys that do well on Twitter. I'm studying up on it, wanting to do more and do better. And what I've noticed, the people with big followings and big engagement on Twitter, they have these threads, right? It's not graphical. It's text-based, and some of them are quite long. If you get 20 threads on a tweet, yeah, it's probably, are you pushing maybe a short paragraph or a short chapter in a book? Right?
That's a good way to think about it. Yeah, a chapter,
a short chapter. Not, but most people
2,500 to 7,000 words. You're probably not going to see anything outside of those kind of that. That range.
Yeah, but has that been kind of the proven model to? Because there's so much out there now. Oh, video is 90% of the internet or whatever, and all these, Canva and make beautiful graphics. But now here's guys getting, 100,000 followers and whatever, 1,000 retweets on a thread. It doesn't have a single picture. People are like diving into it, just chewing it up and totally buying what they're selling, which is just engagement.
Yeah. So for social media, what seems to work the best for writing content for social media, ultimately desiring that the people who become part of your audience buy things from you or engage with your company in some way, present you deals, have some sort of a business relationship with them. It is really an iterative process. Let's reference agile project management, agile development. You build something, you put it out there, you get the feedback, you iterate, you do it again. And again, and again, and again, and again, and again, and again. It's iterative, it's evolving. And that's the best way to think of social media. So what I see working really well, I do more of that. Stuff that I don't see working really well, I do less of that. And that is really as simple as it is. And what works for another person may not work for you. There's one person who had said the return on thread writing is that there's none. It's a complete waste of time, never do it. He had 80,000 followers. The next person says, I got 100,000 followers by writing only threads. So it's other people's advice that we should be wary of when it comes to a tactical perspective, right? Like, for example, that most tactical advice is useless because it loses so much context. For example, I mentioned that there's 3 forms of value that people purchase: functional, emotional, and financial value. Suppose I were to say, what works really well is a pitch that focuses on the financial value of your product or of your service. That works the best. So then you would have let's say a weight loss product entrepreneur or nutrition business owner think, so how does this product make people money or save people money? That may not, in fact, be what their audience is going to resonate with. Maybe it's a pitch that leads with the emotional value of the product, the ease of use, the fact that it integrates into your day. You don't have to, put in all these numbers. You don't have to remember how to do this and do that. It doesn't taste nasty. It tastes great, and it's not. The functional and the emotional value may, in fact, be the things you want to emphasize. But some rando on the internet says you got to do this one thing to make it work. Anyone who says you got to do this one thing to make it work, this one tactic, probably going to be misleading. That'd be like saying,
no way, no way, man. Because they all told me that SEO is dead. Oh, and social media is dead, and email is dead,
and the internet is dead,
and VSLs are dead, and book writing is dead because nobody reads.
Yes. Those hot takes, those one-liners are usually irrelevant.
Come on, they're not irrelevant. I have a post, and I'm working on a modification of it as a report that CRMs are dead. And I love, tweaking, because I know you got to be bombastic, right, to a degree, but you got to back it up too, and because my argument is the standalone CRM, the Rolodex in the sky is dead. If you don't have automation and systems and processes tied in, it's just data. It's just a library sitting there, and libraries are dead unless you go to them and pull a book out and read it. You can't just sit in the library and go, man, I got smarter. No.
Yeah, it doesn't work if you don't do it.
Yeah.
The pill doesn't work if you don't take it.
Yeah, exactly.
The profit doesn't close if you don't ask for the sale.
So is it hard to write a book? Is it expensive to hire a ghostwriter? I mean, what should people do listening to this? Like, what's your takeaway? What's the first thing they should do once they get done listening to us flapping our gums?
Sure. I tell everybody this who either wants to write it themselves or work with me. The first thing that they need to do is to get 100% clear on their promise of value. Now, the promise of value is eventually going to be contained in the title and the subtitle. I'll give you two real world examples that are really, really cool of this. This is the absolute first thing you do. What are you going to promise readers? And most people write absolute crap books because their promise is not sexy enough. It's not big enough. It doesn't feel like clickbait to you. If it feels like clickbait, you've got a good book idea. You've got a book.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because it is. You really do. I've had this problem. Like I don't want to be clickbaity. I always want to under promise, under deliver. But in this case, you've got to make a bold claim, huh?
Yes. You want to do what feels like an overpromise, but then overwhelm readers with functional value inside the book, meaning details on how to do it step by step with no step skipped. And that is effective at cultivating the feeling of overwhelm, because, wow, this is the way to do it. I am sold. I'm going to follow this person's advice, except I don't know where to start. And there's so much here. And there's so many things I didn't think about. This author answered questions I didn't even know I was supposed to ask. And there's so much to do. And, oh, what's this? There's a free content upgrade available on the author's website where I can get all of these tools for one low price, or I can get them for free if I join their email list, or I can have their company do all of this for me. So you see right there, the feeling of overwhelm of, I have to do all this myself, I can't even. And then you solve that problem. Get these free things from our website. We have a course. There's a group. There's people available that you can hire from our team. You can work with us. You can have a done for you service, just have us do it directly.
So what about the people that might think, and when I say people, I mean me, because I've struggled with this, right? It's like I don't want to feel like a bait and switch. I do over deliver. I give them all the tips and tricks. And so am I manipulating them into giving me $15 or $20 for a book because I want them to pay me $3,000 for coaching, or $100,000 for onboarding and being their consultant, blah, blah, blah. So, how do you shake your clients of that feeling?
Yes. So the first thing is that there's, within the marketing communication kind of content creation space, there's a hard and fast rule. I've been able to find the exact source of this, but it feels true enough. It's a social truth that previous customers are 2,000% more likely to buy again from you than a non-customer to buy for the first time. That feels true enough. So here's what we know, is that the people who are most likely to buy from you next are the people who bought from you before. True enough. We also know that when someone buys your book, they have self-identified as someone willing to pay for help. The book can give them all the information that they need, help them come to the decision point where they realize, this is the way I'm going to do it, but there still is the follow-through. That's why the book is only $20. It's an information product. Here's what to do and here's how to do it. Does not get them the results without the action. So what works the best is usually 4 offers, a set of 4 offers. The book being the least expensive, the most DIY. Next up is usually a course. It's a masterclass. There's sometimes guides, there's downloads, there's trackers. Sometimes there's a community involved in there. It's a little bit more expensive. $47 to $197 usually is that price point. It'd be up to $497 there's like a community, a group component where you can, alongside other classmates, work towards and follow the benchmarks in the system to get the ultimate outcomes that you desire. It's a little bit more help, a little bit more of a price. And then there's usually some sort of a coaching or a consulting service, or where you're able to engage directly with the author or the author/business owner's team in some way, paying for a session. There's a series of consulting, maybe a single project that they're doing for you, right? Where they do not want to do it themselves because they don't have the time or the talent, but they're sold on your method as the best way to get it done. And then there's the highest ticket offer on this value ladder of 4 items, from book to course to coaching to the ultimate done for you package. This is $5,000 to $10,000 a month, sort of a retainer, and even up $100,000, consulting project. It's fractional fractional C-suite services. It's even some sort of a merger deal, big deals. It's a multi-year business-to-business contract, enterprise sale. That's a single contract is worth a few $1 million, right? Where the customer is contracting the author's company to just do everything for the organization of 500 employees, 2,000 employees, for example. I've got a couple authors who have done those exact deals because of their book. All they have, but in order to get to that point where there's that enough trust, that respect, the other information products, the other services are in there. Some people will just skip right to the end and do the highest ticket service offer. Give you an example. This book right here just came out. Author of mine, Noah Ravoy, Become Immune to Manipulation. He coaches organizations, entrepreneurs on their hiring processes, their training processes, and even their customer relations processes to ensure that they're not insulated from reality and that their management or that their employees are frankly manipulating them. They want to remove manipulation from their marketing to prevent PR crises, right? His book comes out. One day later, somebody who bought his $9 ebook sends a message on Twitter. Hey, Noah, I just bought your book. I'm about 4 chapters in. I'd like to hire you. Everything you're saying so far, I need an expert to teach to my people. $5,000 upsell. Boom. One day later. Pretty cool. He didn't have anything else in place yet. Here's another author who's done really well. Dr. Philip Ovadia, author of Stay Off My Operating Table. Both of these sound like clickbait titles, and they are, which is why they work. In his case, he has a concierge, out-of-pocket telehealth medical service, a private practice that's very expensive for most people. And in the first week, he got 5 clients from people who had bought the book, read a few chapters, said, I am oversold to the point I don't need to read anymore. I'm just going to go hire him for me and for my company. And that's what he's doing now, is sending out copies to organizations that he would like as private clients. And these deals are massive, massive deals. And it's very successful. And both of them send me referrals out the wazoo, which is excellent because it's such a profitable service for them. Nice. Even though hiring a ghostwriter is kind of like hiring a consultant for a number of months, 6 to 12 months, in terms of like what they could expect the monthly installments or the monthly budget to be. You know, it's not a Fiverr person who will write your ebook for $5. It is not write my book in 30 days for $300 on Upwork. You know, and what you get back is copy and paste Wikipedia articles, which I've seen before. Oh, yeah. One of the top searches on Google is this 85% off ghostwriter agency. And what they do is they post your project on Upwork or on Fiverr. They find someone who's cheap, and then that person does it for $5, and they pocket, you know, $3,000, $5,000, you know, and just pay the person $50 or $100, $150 to ghostwrite, quote unquote, ghostwrite the book. A client that I have now fired one of these 85% off ghostwriting agencies, and they sent me the manuscript that they personally put together. Something felt off when I began reading it. I copied and pasted it. The first result was word for word, copy and paste, plagiarism from Wikipedia. So that's you know, but it's so cheap. There's such a thing as too cheap.
Oh my
There's too cheap. And it's better to not write a book than to write one that diminishes your credibility, dismantles your authority, and destroys your integrity before the public. Yeah. I see this a lot, where the book is so bad, such an amateur job, that I can't take the person seriously. And I'm not alone. There are companies that will advertise. They have these scribe services, they call them, where what they do is they interview you, they transcribe the recording and call it chapter 1. And they read like transcripts. Yeah. First thing I'd like to teach you in this book is how to, and that's what literally is the beginning of chapter 1. That is not a book. That is a transcript with the uhs and the ums and the false starts edited out. But it's fast for the company. They can charge a lot because, the perception of credibility and authority is so high by having a book. So they're correct to sell the value of having a book. They're incorrect on the delivery in terms of the quality, because having a book that dismantles your credibility and authority in public is worse than not having a book. Yeah, for sure. You've got a hard stop coming up, but I want to make sure we plug. You've got a couple of links, right? And I'll mention them in the outro, and I'm linking to them now on the write-up. But you've got a free call, right? People can talk with you if they're interested, and you've got some resources. I own one of the programs you did with Ed. So
I can vouch at least for one. So I'm going to assume the others are good as well.
Yeah, and that's one of the higher. The best way to tweet it is one of the higher priced courses that we've got. Others are kind of like master classes, short 45 minute to hour and a half long. Yeah. Here is everything and the only things you need to know about topic X.
Yeah,
like self editing. So I have like how to edit your own stuff called Write This Not That. Like 40 a checklist of it's a printable checklist of 45 things to look for. Run through that a few times, and then it becomes second nature. And you can go from first rough draft to a persuasive, clean, and clear final draft quickly without even have to reference the sheet anymore.
Nice. So where do we send them?
Yeah, so the entrepreneurswordsmith.com/book. That's the name of my business, is Entrepreneurs Wordsmith. That's the sort of person I work with, as being the wordsmith for entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurswordsmith.com/book. Book a time to talk with me. And the focus of that call is going to be, do you have a book that can build your authority, your credibility, and create upsells into your other offers better than not having a book does? Because if it doesn't, well, then you shouldn't hire me or anyone, and you shouldn't even have a book. And that's important to know. So even know is a worthwhile decision to reach.
Sure.
And then I have courses. I have them hosted on the Gumroad platform, which is very intuitive for students. joshualisec.gumroad.com. Think a piece of gum on the road. It's a strange visual. Don't know what that name is about, but it's a great product.
I've got my Make Every Sale course on that. I like the platform. I don't know where the name came from, but it works.
It does indeed. It does indeed.
Cool, man. Well, I will let you get to it. Joshua Lisec, all the way from, was it Dayton? You're around Dayton?
Yeah. Dayton, Ohio.
Very cool, man. Thanks for coming on the show. It's been great.
It's my pleasure, Wes. Thank you so much.
Interesting to hear how billionaires do things, huh? They have a process, bootstrapped, threw themselves into their business for years. Are you working that hard, right? Are you focused on customer acquisition? Saw themselves as the entrepreneur from the beginning, visionaries, explicit goals, do something. They did something better, faster, cheaper than the competition, made people feel better. What they created made people feel better. It was easier to use. It was less frustrating, quicker ROI. So there you go. Is that what you're working on? You probably have a book in you. So do you need help? Someone like Joshua can help as a professional. I could help in a much different way. Give you some advice, some consulting. I'm not going to write it for you like he will. But reach out, get some help. And, at a minimum, start writing. You can make social media posts. You can see what gets liked, what gets shared, what gets commented on. That's how you know if you're onto something. You've got to be willing to put yourself out there. It's easier than ever. I tell people all the time, go start answering questions on like Quora, on LinkedIn groups, on Reddit. Lots of opportunity out there. Even if you're in a restricted market, healthcare, financial services, there's all kind of issues I know around regulations. So just hang out in groups and answer questions. Heck, you can just share news articles, and you don't have to even give much commentary. Say, hey, this is what's going on. This is how it compared to last week, last month, last year. Here's some additional resources. Let me know if you have questions. You can be consolidating information for people, aggregating it, and they come to you. And then, behind the scenes, you can be writing, creating that foundation that you can later publish, get approval, whatever, and go publish it. So start writing. Okay. Talking about the open loop. That's really good. Guys have talked about that before on the show. There's a lot of it. You see it on good movies, good shows. There's always, stories that are woven in, on Friends and Star Trek and whatever. You have multiple characters, and they're all going through something, and then, boom, 10 seconds, 30 seconds, 2 minutes, whatever, then boom, they switch to the next one. Then back to that person, then to a third, then back to the second. then to introduce a new one, then go back to the first, close that, and then open another one. Then back to the second, back to the third. That's what he means by these opening, these loops. You'll see good comedians do that. They'll start to tell a story, and then, and it'll remind them of something else, and reminding them of something else, and then bam, they'll sprinkle in a tie-in from the opening. It's not easy to do, all right, but you can do it, but you got to start practicing. You got to think about it. You got to work on it like anything else. Get the help you need, even if it's joining just a copywriting group, but start writing. I promise you, you'll be glad you did. If you need additional encouragement, if you need help acquiring customers so you have somebody to sell to, let me know. MakeEverySale.com, sellmoreofeverything.com. It's all there for you. Or just go to the Contact Us page on the saleswhisperer.com and we will talk and I will help you. Thanks for listening. Now go sell something.